Hello guys, welcome to Automatic, and I'm Medic. Today we're gonna talk about storytelling, gameplay, and the development process of Dead Space. For most of horror game lover, this is one of the best horror game in the history. This game is a great continuation of some horror games like Resident Evil, and a great inspiration for more. If you're ready, let's start. Okay, let's start with the story. PS, for those who concerned about spoilers, don't worry, I will warn you before the part I gave spoilers. The year is 2508, and there has been an extinction level crisis on Earth because of the unsustainable use of resources. The people who survived this crisis realize that the only way to save all of human race, they need to extend their existence in other planets so they can discover new resources. And for this purpose, they used the USG Ishimura.
So that's Ishimura. Impressive.
The USG Ishimura. Biggest planet cracker in her class. And it looks like they already popped the cork.
USG Ishimura is a ship designed by Concordance Extraction Corporation for new resource gathering. And thanks to USG Ishimura and other planet crackers, human race mined 34 planets and now they have lots of resources. But while USG Ishimura mining the 35th planet, there has been a problem occurred and they sent a distress called the CC. This is the part we're coming in. Our character is Isaac Clarke, who's a ship system specialist and an engineer. We are traveling to investigate and repair Ishimura with USG Callion, accompanied by 3 security personnel and a computer specialist, Kendra Daniels. Isaac also searching for his missing girlfriend, Nicole, who is a senior medical officer in Ishimura, which we're gonna talk about this later in the spoiler part. While we're trying to dock Ishimura, there has been a malfunction and because of that, Callion is badly damaged. But the crew arriving to the ship safely. They are searching for the people in Ishimura, and they realize the flight launch and most part of the ship is quarantined, and Ishimura is abandoned. While Isaac is checking the records of Ishimura, the launch locks down and some of the members of the crew is killed by necromorphs. We are running from another necromorph and because of that we are getting separated from the other members of the crew. From this part, we have to find what happened in Ishimura and we need to escape from this mess. Now, before I continue the story, in this part we're gonna talk about some of the important characters, the cause of this mess and more. Lots of this info can affect your experience in Dead Space Remake, and if you want to experience the whole story by yourself, you can pass the spoiler parts of the video. You can jump to gameplay details or the development process. If you're still here, then we can talk about the summary of the story. First, I want to give more details about the Nicole situation. Like I said, Nicole is a personal of Ishimura and she's also missing. But before she went missing, she managed to send a video record to Isaac. And this is where game starts. We are watching a record from the Nicole, but the recording is distorted and we can't see the end of it. So that's another mystery about the game. What happened to Nicole? Is she dead? But what about the record? What happened to the end of it? And why are we seeing Nicole everywhere? And before I'm gonna talk about the answers of these questions, we're gonna talk about the all cause of this mess, which we will call them markers. These double helix shaped stones are kinda a mind controller. But the important part, they can regenerate necrotic tissues in necromorphs. In the first Dead Space, there are 2 types of markers. First one is black marker, which this is the original type of markers and we don't know its origin. And the other type, who created by intelligent creatures, is red marker, which this is the main cause of this madness. At first, marker affects some of the crew, and some of them like Callus Mercer, which he is one of the main antagonists of this game, gone completely insane and convinced the crew to mass suicide. And that's the origin of this carnage actually. But they are not the only ones who are affected by markers. Like they are, our character Isaac is affected by marker too. And this is the why we're seeing Nicole everywhere. In my opinion, story is kinda going slow. But other than that, characters aren't well written. For example, Isaac is just pulling somewhere by other characters in the whole game. I know one of this reason and I will talk about this later in the development part, but I can see they want to create a character like Gordon Freeman, and I don't think they made it well. Which I think the developers thought the same like me. You can see it in the second game. For example, Isaac can't talk in the second game.
I'm different. I'll call you back later.
It's okay.
How you doing?
If you pass the Isaac and move to Nicole, the situation is still the same. Like I said, we're seeing Nicole in the whole game, but in the end of Dead Space, we find out she committed suicide without an explanation. And one of the main villain of the game, Kendra Daniels, which this is one of the big twists I suppose, explain how Marker tricks us with the division of Nicole. But it is happening really fast and without any detailed explanation. I know most of this part is explaining in Dead Space 2 or the logs in Dead Space 1, but these are not the main presentation of the game. You have to find every single one file to solve all of this. And if you ask me, this is a lazy way to tell a story. But other than the characters, I believe in Dead Space, atmosphere is one of the major elements of the story, which this is one of the main goal of the developer team. Every ceiling, every vent cover, every dead body on the ground, and sometimes even empty holes are a potential death trap for you. And because of that, you're always on the edge. You have to be careful all the time. Also musics and sound effects are always supporting this atmosphere. Okay, let's jump to the gameplay details now. I want to talk about the gameplay objects one by one. And let's start with the combat. In Dead Space, there is 3 types of combat style. The first one is melee combat, which you will use it to break the box or checking the corpses in case it's alive. The second one is superpowers, which you will use it to solve puzzles, to kill enemies or gain advantage to kill enemies, access to objects you cannot reach. And the third type of combat is gunplay, which game is wanting you to use this mainly for dealing with the enemies. I won't talk about the first 2 types. But the third type, gunplay, is a masterclass work for me. First of all, you can carry 4 guns at one time, and you have to be careful about the ammo all the time. Ammos are not hard to find, but they are hard to carry. Every gun has its unique ammo type and you have to carry them right, cause you have a limited inventory space. Which, like I said, this is a game who wants to continue the legacy of Resident Evil. And this is not just a horror game, this is a survival horror game. But in Dead Space, unfortunately there are 3 or 4 gun types, definitely better than the others. And the developers want to limit you with the 4 guns carrying. And when they do that, we're not collecting ammo of the other guns, and without ammo you can't use these guns right the time you bought, or you pick them from your storage at the shop. And when they limit the guns, they are limiting the gameplay too. Cause like I said, there is 3 or 4 guns is definitely better than the others, and you are upgrading these 4, and you want to find ammo for this gun. You are not wondering is there a better gun for me, or even if there is, you don't want to use it, cause you know you already have the better choice. Let me explain this to you with examples. In my situation, I always have the same 4 gun. The first one, and the main gun of the game, is Plasma Cutter. This is the first weapon you find in the game, which originally this is not a weapon. This one is mainly used by miners in the game. The Plasma Cutter has 2 types of firing mechanism like every other weapon in the game. You can shoot vertical or horizontal. I mainly used and upgraded this weapon, and this is the deadliest weapon in the game. And also, most fun gun to play if you ask me. And that's making it even more iconic. The second one is Pulse Rifle, which this is the first really firearm you find in Ishimura. Pulse Rifle is a classic auto rifle actually. You are mostly using it to bullet sponge enemies, and with the ammo capacity larger, this will be the second weapon you will use most of the time like me. The third one is Seeker Rifle, and this is a sniper rifle in brief. You will use this to brute enemies with the soft spots on them. This is a weapon you have to use carefully, because its ammo is a little bit harder to find, and you can carry less ammo at the same time. The fourth and the last one of my favorite weapons is Torch Flamethrower, and this one is for the little but crowded enemy types like Swarmers. And that's it. These are the 4 guns you will mostly use, and in my opinion, they are not just the best ones, they are also the ones you needed to. For an example, without Flamethrower, you can't fight properly with the Swarmers, or without Seeker Rifle. Yes, you can kill brute enemies, but you have to spend extreme numbers of ammunition. Well, I talk about the firing types while I was talking about the Plasma Cutter. Let's talk about them a little bit more. Like I said, every gun has its unique fire styles. Some of them are active styles, and some of them, like Plasma Cutter, are passive skills to kill or make it easy to kill enemies. This is important for the variety of gunplay, cause you will need to change your fire angle to shoot soft spots while you're using Plasma Cutter. Or it will help you with the zoom while you're using Seeker Rifle. Or while you're using Line Gun, you will drop bombs on the ground so you will have a better control in the area. But like I said about the types of gun, some of these styles are useless too. Let's talk this with an example. In Pulse Rifle, the first style is typical fire, nothing special. But the second type is attacking a circled area surrounding you. This is not for killing enemies, this is for slowing them. But why? Why should you use this? You can cut your enemy's leg, which I will talk about this later too by the way. Or you can use your power to slow them too. This ability is just a bad usage of ammo for you. And probably you can kill all the enemies surrounding you with the same amount of ammo you use to slow them. I mentioned about cutting legs. Let's continue with that. Like I said in the story part, necromorphs are regenerated corpses, so you can't just kill them with the shooting in the head or cutting their head. You have to cut their legs, arms and heads at the same time. You have to make them non-functional. But other than killing them, the slowing down is an important part too, cause in the first chapter in the game, killing enemies won't be challenging for you. They're coming separately mostly, and you can hunt them one by one. But when you pass the first chapters, game will send bunch of enemies at the same time, so you have to cut their joints or use another method to make their movement slow. And this is one of the best mechanic in the game. Cause like I said, this is not just a horror game, this is a survival horror game. You have to think fast and you have to make decisions to gain better results with the least ammo usage. With this, Dead Space is giving you a horror experience most of the game couldn't. And I know you will say, this is not something new in that year. Resident Evil made this already with the second or the fourth game. And I agree with this sentence. But in Resident Evil's game, enemies aren't fast. They are not always threatening. They are slow and easy to walk away. In Dead Space, you have to face with them. You can't just pass by. You should slow them or you should lower their number to create time for yourself. That's why I believe Dead Space making a better combat experience for the player.
I saved this for you.
We talk about most of the parts of combat. I want to talk about one last gameplay topic before I proceed to development process. So let's talk about boss fights. In Dead Space 1, we are always encountered with necromorphs. Even the antagonist of this game is always humans, we are not fighting with them or getting support from them. There's more than 15 types of enemies in Dead Space, but unfortunately we are encountering just one unique boss fight. You will say, there's lots of boss fights in Dead Space, but they are either repeating or they are just huge enemies with the soft spots. And even with this, Dead Space is feeling like a Resident Evil clone. I know there's lots of iconic Resident Evil bosses, but like Dead Space, when we're talking about the combat part, they are giving you nothing. They are mostly bullet sponge enemies, or you have to shoot the soft spots on them. In Dead Space, you won't see bullet sponge enemies mostly, and that's a positive side in my opinion. But when you think about it, even with these positive sides, the fights aren't special. You are just shooting the yellow parts. We talked lots part of the game. Now, let's talk about how Glenn Schofield and his team made this game, cause this is another great story. In 2005, Glenn thought about a game, a horror game within space, but Glenn didn't know is that a good idea, so he wanted to see his idea on screen. And right this time, Microsoft gave them the developer kit of Xbox 360. Glenn knew this is the right time to test his idea, so they made a demo has 3 episodes in it. These 3 episodes involve 3 different rooms. With these episodes, the developer team wanted to see environments, puzzles, and tense atmosphere. When they liked the thing they saw, they officially started to develop Dead Space. Before we continue the technical issues and the struggles of development process, I want to talk about the productions inspired to Dead Space. Like I mentioned its name lots of time in this video, the first one is Resident Evil 4. Glenn was amazed by the atmosphere of Resident Evil 4. He wanted the game, you have to be careful in every corner, and he wanted to keep players on the edge all the time. And even because of this, Glenn told his team, we are making a Resident Evil 4 in space. But he didn't only inspired from Resident Evil 4, he also inspired from Silent Hill 2. The atmosphere in Silent Hill City and the changing between 2 worlds had a big effect on Glenn. But the games wasn't the only thing having an effect on Glenn, he also inspired by lots of movies. And the most important one was Event Horizon. Glenn was amazed by the storytelling of Event Horizon. In one of the scenes, crew gets in a room and as viewers there is nothing there. But when the light brightens some part of the room, you can see all the mess. And Glenn believed this type of storytelling will make players uncomfortable. Finally, we can talk about the actual development phase. When they started to develop Dead Space, they made 5 grand rules for themselves. And they decided no matter what happens, they won't change any of these rules. The first rule was, whatever we do, that thing will be original and it will carry a part of us. If I have to give an example for this article, I would say the movement and rush of the enemies. Let me explain it to you. In most of the horror games, the enemies are waiting for you in a corner or they attack you when you pass a specific spot. But in Dead Space, the enemies is spawning randomly into vent covers or ceilings. And when they enter the room, even in shock, you have to stand your ground quickly, so you're stepping back from the enemy. And just at that time, BAM! There's another enemy from the vent cover behind you. Or you're walking at the hallway. If there's 2 empty, you're thinking, oh, this can't be a potential tentacle area. Or you saw a corpse on the hallway, and you will think, is it really a corpse? Or is it a necromorph? These are some of the ways Dead Space made feel player unsafe and paranoid all the time. The second rule was, there won't be any HUD screen in the game. For who doesn't know, what is HUD screen? HUD is shortage for heads up display. Like all of you know, in many games there is bars to show your health or stamina or map or remaining ammo. But in Dead Space there isn't any HUD screen. If you want to see your remaining ammo, you can use to aim. Or to see where you should go, you can use a projector. Or another projector to see all the map. Even for the video message or the logs, they used another projectile system to show you. But the most iconic and most challenging one to find out was the health bar. The developer team wanted the health bar in game, so the player can heal or get damaged. They didn't want a system like Call of Duty, but they didn't know how to do it. As you can see, Isaac has a unique type looking of armor to protect himself. While developing the Dead Space, in one scene, Isaac was dead, but the green bar on his back didn't turn off, or the color changed. And the developer, which you don't know his or her name unfortunately, suggests an opinion. He or she said they can use the bar on Isaac's back to show health. At full health, it will be all green, and all of the bars are full. But when Isaac took hit, it will go yellow and red until it's all drawn out and Isaac dead. Developer team loved this idea, and that's how the iconic health bar occurred. The third one, and the one I hate, is Isaac won't talk in the whole game. And like we talk in the historic part, this is inspired by Gordon Freeman. But making a character can talk is a hard task, cause if character can talk, that means you have to take orders all the time. Half-Life 2 was a different example, cause Freeman has always shown his personality. Even he can talk, or doesn't want to talk, you can see the character development on him. But when the subject is Isaac, I can't say the same. The fourth one, and the one determinative for the gameplay, is Joint of Isaacs, or the enemies are choppable. And for this, developer team designed lots of different enemy model with long arms, legs and tentacles, so players can easily shoot and chop them off. But the most challenging one was the last of them. The other four sometimes challenged the team, but they never wanted to break the rule. But in this one, they wanted to break the rule and made the game with the easiest way. The fifth rule was, everything in the game must be interactive. Before I mention the main problem of this rule, let's take a look at the game. Like the team said, they wanted to make a game that player can interact with objects or enemies. And even some points, they wanted to use this interaction to solve puzzles or use to kill enemies. And they made very well. You can grab nearly all objects from the ground with telekinesis, or you can use enemy parts to attack enemies. But like I said, even they made a great job, at some point they hit a rock. And that rock was this scene. At first, maybe you can't understand why that was a hard part to create, but all developer team spent nearly 1 month for making just this scene. Now you're asking why? Why developer team challenged this much by this scene? First of all, like the rule said, everything in the game must be interactive, so this scene cannot be a cutscene. But when they tried to make the scene in-game, they had to create a new animation, new combat angle, and lots more. Now team thought they can make the animation for Isaac's fall and drag, but Isaac wouldn't shot or attack enemy other way. But Glenn didn't like this idea. He thought with this they are just creating an in-game cutscene. And Glenn also thought if the players only watch the scene, it won't be effective for them. It won't scare them. And Glenn wants to make a scene players can shoot and run. Only a scene like this can make player panicked and scared. So because of that, Glenn was sure this scene has to be interactive. There won't be another option. For this purpose, Glenn created new missions for every team. When the job is done and all the materials come from the teams, they combine all of it. But the result was unsatisfying. After this, Glenn thought another way. He decided the teams will work as a single unit. So when there is something wrong, the right team will be there to fix the problem. And they start again. From the beginning of the scene to end of it, they worked as one team. First, they made Isaac's grab by the tentacle. Then Isaac's fall. After that, they worked in dragging. And when it's all done, they started the combat part. And with this method, finally they made a process. When they make this scene, team also gained self-confidence. And after this event, they didn't hesitate or afraid of any problem. They knew as a team they can handle everything.
Your time has come. No need to be frightened. No reason to fight. Many have gone before us, and now it's time for us to take the voyage together. Transcend death. Future take its course. Join me as I gaze upon the face of God.
Okay, we talked nearly every topic about original Dead Space. Now let's talk about the remake. As all we know, this is a remake developing by EA Motive Studios. And while they're developing this game, they are using Frostbite engine. And I don't know what to feel about this exactly. Motive isn't a new studio, but they only developed Star Wars Squadrons by themselves. And they helped DICE to make Star Wars Battlefront 2, since they've created. And we all know what happened to these games. And now they're developing Dead Space, and they're using Frostbite. If you don't know, this engine is a trouble for lots of EA game developer team. For example, BioWare used in Dragon Age Inquisition and Anthem. Dragon Age wasn't that bad, but they had to cut lots of gameplay mechanic because of the Frostbite. And Anthem's gameplay mechanic maybe wasn't that bad, but as the same, they had to cut some looting mechanics in the game because of Frostbite again. I believe Motive is a better studio when we talk about the engine, because EA kinda create them to support studios. But either way, it's a scary situation. Right, the title was what should we expect from the remake, not what is concerns of Medic. So let's talk about them. First of all, FPS. In original Dead Space, there is a 30 FPS limit. I know, you can shut it down with a lot of way, but even with that, you can't experience the game very well. For the first expectation of mine is FPS fixing. I don't expect less than 60 FPS in consoles either. The second topic, gameplay. When I watched the 10 minutes gameplay of Dead Space Remake, I thought, well, this looked like shit. The plasma cutter effect was terrible. Well, actually, there were no effect at all. First, they have to fix this. I mean, in original Dead Space, which they made it 2008, has a great expression of shooting. You can see the bullets, and also you can see the effects of bullets on enemies. But in the video of Remake, there was no bullets effect whatsoever. And the effect of bullets on the enemy, well, I hope this is just a massive joke. The last topic is visual art. Dead Space has its unique atmosphere to express horror. It doesn't give you a gore experience, even it's used necromorphs as enemy. But when you walk in a room, you're feeling the tension. I hope with Frostbite they won't ruin this. I like what I saw on the gameplay video of Remake, but we didn't saw the whole game, so anything can happen. I know I want lots of things in Dead Space, but Dead Space is a great game made with a great passion. You can see the spirit of the developer team in every enemy model, in every room. I believe Dead Space is a milestone for the gaming industry, and since first launch of this game, it's inspiring lots of game. I believe guys like Glenn Schofield are real artists. I hope you guys liked the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. For catching more videos of ours, don't forget to click the little ring after you subscribed. You can also visit our Patreon page and subscribe us from there too. Your name can immortalize in our videos, and you can also vote the next videos. And for the next videos, please make a comment. For an example, would you like to hear what went wrong with the Dead Space 3? Or is it the best game of Dead Space? Is second game? See you guys on the next videos. Goodbye.